This video is about making low-cost continuous masonry wall panels using a mold developed by University of Rouen. In continuous masonry construction, masonry wall panels are formed between two shutters bounded by two concrete edge columns. What is seen here is the placement of the two shutters on the foundation and the connection of the shutter's guiding mechanism to the supporting structure. Four circular galvanized iron tubes are used in guiding the shutters during the vertical movement. Each shutter has got two galvanized iron tubes located at the ends. Circular steel sleeves are provided at the ends of the shutters to receive the galvanized iron tube guides. All of the circular steel sleeves are provided with two nylon bushes at the ends to take off any friction between the shutter and the galvanized iron tubes that can cause while raising and lowering the shutters. Two of the galvanized iron tubes being connected to one end of the edge columns is seen here. Provision to receive other galvanized iron tubes located at the other concrete edge column are seen here. In a similar fashion to what was described above, the remainder of the two galvanized iron tubes are first sent through the receiving tubes of the shutters and are connected to the top and bottom of the concrete edge column. With this, attachment of the shutter's guiding mechanism is complete. What you now see is the overall view of the guiding mechanism mounted on the concrete edge columns. It is now the time to place the two cross beams and hang the chain blocks. Here cross beams are seen placed at the top of the concrete edge columns. Ring provided at the middle of each of the cross beams are the provisions to hang the chain blocks. To attach the cross beams to the existing mold arrangement, first the cross beams need to be sent through an appropriate receiving guides. A large diameter bolt connected to each of the galvanized iron tubes acts as the receiving guides to the cross beams. Once the cross beams have been sent through the receiving guides, it need to be securely fastened to the existing mold arrangement. What is seen here is the sending the cross beam through the guides and securing them using nuts. Hung from above and connected to the After securing below, all four ends of the cross beams, chain blocks can be hung from the center of the cross beam. With chain blocks hung from above and connected to the shutters on the foundation level, the mold is now ready to receive mortar for compaction. However, before any construction to begin, we must make sure that the shutters are clean and are free from any debris from the previous constructions. What is seen here is a thin film of oil being applied to the mold after a thorough clean. Oil with demolding properties are preferred for this application. Shutters can now be lowered and are finally ready for wall panel construction. Ability to move the shutters horizontally, which allow tightening of the shutters against the concrete edge column during compaction and releasing the shutters from the face of the wall panel construction during hoisting and lowering, is the principal most important feature of the developed mold. What is seen here is the clamping of the two shutters against the concrete edge columns before mortar is being placed for compaction. Horizontal movements of the shutters can be achieved by bridge jacks located between the shutter and the shutter guides. What is seen here is the overall view of the mold with the shutters on the foundation clamped against the concrete edge columns, ready to receive the first dose of mortar. Mortar used for the continuous masonry construction is of carefully selected composition, which is decided after a number of trial mixes. Selected mortar mixes has to be comply with the requirement of constructability and should not adhere to the shutters at the applied degree of compaction. Sand, corridust, or a mixture of sand and corridust can be used as the fine aggregate of the mix. In this particular demonstration, you can see corridust is being used as the only fine aggregate of the mix. Corridust is more stable than sand because of the larger particle size and rough surface texture of the aggregate, both of which provide resistance against the disintegration of the mortar mix. Better stability of corridust also allows larger proportions of cement to fine aggregate used in the mortar mix. Corridust, being the cheaper of the two aggregate types, makes the use of corridust in continuous masonry construction still more cheaper, as larger proportions of fine aggregate to cement ratio is possible with corridust as fine aggregate. However, it must be said that the better finishes are always possible with sand as fine aggregate. Next important phase of mixing is to get the water content right. One quick and less complicated means to achieve this initial water content is seen here. If a ball can be made with some effort, but readily crumbles when rubbed between palms and fingers, can be considered as an appropriate initial water content for the mix. Relatively dry mixes are used for the construction of continuous masonry wall panels. Most efficient mixes recorded free water cement ratios of around 0.5. In continuous wall panel construction, mortar is placed between the shutters layer after layer until the full height of the wall is achieved. And what is seen here is the placement of the first layer.
It is important to assess the performance of the mix every now and then and adjust according to its performance. Higher water contents in the mix has a tendency to stick the mortar to the shutter, whilst extra dry mixes are unstable for continuous masonry construction. Water demand for the mix may also vary depending on the day and should be adjusted according to actual performance of the mix. For example, if the mortar is attached to the shutters, water need to be reduced, while if there is any hint of disintegration during compaction, water need to be added to improve the cohesiveness between the particles of the mix. What is seen here is a demolition hammer used for the compaction. Demolition hammer can be readily adopted to deliver a compaction effort by attaching an end plate for the hammer bit. It is also important to specify what is the adequate compaction effort for this kind of wall panel construction independent of the means of construction. To that end, any standard compaction effort for reducing 6 inches of mortar to 4 inches of finished masonry is considered adequate. What is seen here is the compaction of the first layer of masonry and how it would look from the top. It is always a good practice to complete one layer before moving to another layer, as this will allow to look out for any defects and rectify before moving to the next layer. What is seen here is a placement of mortar for the next layer of construction, and this will continue until the full wall panel height is achieved. What is seen here is the placement of mortar to a middle layer of the